K2, Pakistan, August 1992. A female climber lies inside a snow cave, more than 8,500 meters above the ground. She can't see anything. Her hands and feet are frozen. Her strength is fading. One more night up here, and she won't wake up. Far below in Camp 4, a man is fixing ropes along the most dangerous part of the route. He knows that without them, she'll never make it down. He delivers pizzas back home to pay for her expedition tickets. He once fell off a cliff and broke his arm in several places, for her. He gave her his sleeping bag. He broke trail through half a meter of snow, while she followed in his footsteps. And a few days later, when she returns alive, she won't mention his name. Not once, not in an interview, not in a book, not in her memoirs. Her name is CHANTAL MAUDUIT, a French climber, beautiful, famous, the rising star of European mountaineering, the fourth woman in history to reach the summit of K2, the mountain that takes the life of one out of every 4 who dare to climb it. But in the climbing world, she's known by another name, the Black Widow. Why? Because men around her lost their minds, their careers, their health. Some even lost their lives. She climbed to the top by standing on other people's shoulders. She flirted, manipulated, used, and moved on, without looking back, without regret. Some called her a genius of altitude, others, a predator in a world of ice and stone, and a few said she was simply a woman who learned to play by men's rules and win. But everyone agreed on one thing. Being close to CHANTAL MAUDUIT was dangerous. She left behind a trail of broken lives, shattered hearts, and bodies that never came down from the mountains. Her story isn't just about climbing. It's about how far a person is willing to go for a dream, and the price others pay for it. So, who was she really? Where did this woman come from, the one who would shake the entire world of high-altitude mountaineering? CHANTAL MAUDUIT was born in France, at the very foot of the Alps, where the mountains aren't a postcard, but a way of life, where kids learn to ski before they can properly walk, where snow outside the window is normal from November to April. For most people, it's just a beautiful landscape, a place for family vacations, photos, and chocolate. But not for CHANTAL. She fell in love with the cold, the danger, the height, with that feeling of standing alone against the rock where everything depends on you, your grip, your precision, your will to keep moving when your mind screams, stop. Skiing quickly became too easy, too predictable. She moved on to climbing, the real kind, harsh, demanding, with no safety nets. And she was good, exceptionally good. Good enough to earn her official mountain guide certification, a professional one. In the 1980s, that was almost unheard of for a woman. Mountaineering was a man's world, with its own rules, codes, and unspoken barriers. A female guide, seriously? Who would follow her into the mountains? Who would trust her with their life? But CHANTAL didn't care. She got the certification, and started taking on the toughest routes in France, alone, with men. It didn't matter. She's fast, precise, fearless, and she's beautiful, which, as it turns out, can be just as dangerous as an ice axe. Fame comes to her suddenly, and loudly. CHANTAL is 22. She signs up for an ice climbing competition, a serious one. The best male climbers from across Europe are there, professionals who've spent years perfecting their technique on frozen walls. And among them, one woman, CHANTAL MAUDUIT. Some of the men smirk, others laugh out loud. A woman in ice climbing? Let's see how that goes. The start signal. CHANTAL moves up the wall, fast, precise, no wasted motion. Her ice axes bite into the wall. Her crampons find every tiny edge. She moves like she's dancing on a sheet of ice, graceful, sharp, relentless. She finishes, 3rd place. Out of 250 competitors, 3rd among the men. The hall goes silent, then explodes in applause. The striking Frenchwoman becomes an instant sensation. People start talking. Her name spreads. She's invited to join the French National Mountaineering Association, the elite circle, the gateway to the world of 8,000ers. CHANTAL doesn't waste a second. She dives into mountaineering head first, tackling one difficult route after another. France, Switzerland, Italy. The Alps become her training ground. And soon, she understands one thing. In the mountains, the rules are different. No one cares who you are in the city, what your last name is, how much money you have. Up here, There's only one question. Will you reach the summit, and will you come back alive? Chantal becomes a star of French alpinism. Magazines write about her. Expeditions invite her. Her photos start appearing on covers. But the Alps, they're just the beginning. She's looking farther, much farther, to where mountains are twice, 3 times higher, where the air is so thin that every breath feels like a fight, where one mistake can kill you. She wants more. Then come the Andes, South America, Peru. For Chantal, it's the first time beyond Europe, her first encounter with altitude that can truly kill. 6,000-meter peaks. These aren't the Alps anymore. The air is different. The pressure. The body starts breaking its own limits. But Chantal keeps going, methodically, confidently. One 6,000er, then another, and then Huascarán, 6,768 meters, one of the highest peaks in the Andes, massive, dangerous, covered in glaciers that could collapse at any moment. Chantal climbs and reaches the summit, wind, cold, a view that takes your breath away. But walking back down, too boring. She pulls out a paraglider. Yes, you heard that right. A paraglider. At nearly 7,000 meters, where every movement costs energy, where the air is so thin the canopy might not even open, where one gust of wind could send you flying in the wrong direction, forever. Chantal jumps, the canopy opens. She soars above the glaciers, over cliffs, over endless drops. In minutes, she lands where others would have spent hours descending, right next to a group of climbers, out of nowhere, from the sky, daring, bold, unforgettable. You can imagine their faces. Among them are experienced mountaineers, men who climb 8,000ers, who've seen the Himalayas, Everest, K2. And here comes a Frenchwoman floating down from the clouds. It makes an impression, a strong one. One of them walks up to her. They talk, laugh, discuss technique, routes, dreams. And then he asks, "Want to climb Everest?" Chantal doesn't hesitate for a second. "Of course I do." That invitation changes everything. Everest isn't just a mountain. It's a symbol, the roof of the world, 8,848 meters high. A place where the air holds only a third of the oxygen found at sea level. A place where your body starts dying the moment you enter the death zone. But Chantal isn't thinking about danger anymore. She's thinking about the summit, 1991, the Himalayas, Everest. Chantal stands in base camp, staring up toward the peak hidden in the clouds, the place every climber dreams of reaching, the place where, every year, people stay behind, those who misjudge their strength. But she's not climbing like everyone else. No oxygen, no tanks, no backup supply of air to keep her alive where lungs can barely function. She's going in alpine style, fast, light, and dangerously pure. No preset camps with food and fuel waiting. No heavy loads, no long caravans. You just take your pack and go. Why? Why refuse oxygen when it could save your life? Chantal's answer is simple. For her, it's about purity, philosophy, feeling. She wrote in her diary, "Climbing Everest, the roof of the world, is every mountaineer's childhood dream. My dream is to do it without oxygen, without help, like a cyclist pedaling without a motor. To stand at 8,000 meters without oxygen is to rediscover your senses." In these magical places of the Himalayas, a person feels an extraordinary harmony with the earth. Their inner horizons expand. Beautiful words, right? But the reality is far harsher than poetry. At 8,000 meters without oxygen, your brain starts to shut down. Logic fades. You forget the simplest things. Your blood thickens. Your heart pounds like you're running a marathon. But you're standing still, fighting just to breathe. Chantal keeps climbing, slowly, relentlessly. But Everest doesn't yield. The weather turns, the wind grows stronger, her energy drains away. At some point, it becomes clear. Any step higher means death. She turns back. Descends. No summit, no glory. Failure. But for Chantal, this isn't the end. It's a challenge. She comes down and makes herself a promise. From now on, she'll climb only 8,000ers, only the highest, deadliest peaks on Earth. Everest didn't surrender? Fine. There will be other attempts, other mountains. Her ambition keeps rising with every meter she climbs. She doesn't just want to be a good mountaineer anymore. She wants to become a legend, and she's ready to risk everything to get there. Let's pause for a moment. And really think about what we're talking about here. 8,000 meters, the death zone. That's not a metaphor. It's the actual term scientists, doctors, and climbers all use. The death zone. Why? Because at that altitude, the human body begins to break down, simply by being there. It doesn't matter if you're moving or lying still. It doesn't matter if you're a trained athlete or a casual hiker. Your body is not built to survive that high. The air up there holds only a third of the oxygen found at sea level. Imagine. Every breath gives you just a fraction of what you need. Your lungs strain to pull in air, your heart hammers in your chest, and yet you're still suffocating. Your blood thickens. Literally, it turns heavy, like syrup. The heart struggles to push it through your veins. The brain starves. Hypoxia sets in. You start losing your mind, forgetting simple things. You can't tie your laces. You confuse left and right. You make absurd decisions, the kind that kill people. Your muscles shut down. Every step feels impossible. What would take a minute down below takes an hour up here. And the worst part, even if you stop to rest, your strength doesn't come back. There's no recovery at 8,000 meters. You just die slower. The body starts eating itself. It burns muscle tissue, shuts down non-essential functions, all to give the brain one last bit of oxygen. Climbers have a saying, every hour spent in the death zone is an hour stolen from your life. That's why you can't stay there. That's why speed means everything. Climb up, take the photo, get down. The faster you move, the better your chances of staying alive. CHANTAL MAUDUIT goes there without oxygen, voluntarily, consciously, more than once. Now, do you see how insane that is? And you're probably asking yourself, why do people do it? Why not just stay home, sit on the couch, and watch TV? Now imagine what it's like to be a woman in that world, the world of mountaineering, the 1990s. High-altitude climbing was a man's club, tough, closed, built on unspoken rules and codes of honor. There were almost no women, just a handful. Wanda Rutkiewicz from Poland, a legend, the first woman to conquer K2. Lydia Yeliseyeva, a Soviet climber, one of the strongest in the world. A few other names, and that's it. Everyone else? Men, hundreds of them, thousands. They climbed together, tied into the same ropes, lived in the same tents, shared food, gear, and risk. They'd known each other for years. And then CHANTAL MAUDUIT arrived. Young, ambitious, technically skilled, and beautiful, very beautiful. That mattered, because in base camps where men spent months cut off from the world, the arrival of an attractive French woman hit like a lightning strike. People noticed her. They started competing for her attention. They offered help, carried her gear, gave up space in their tents. CHANTAL saw it, and she understood. It could be used. She could play this world to her advantage. She felt like a queen. She flirted, lightly, effortlessly. She smiled, joked, gave hope, but never promises. Men went crazy, literally. Her friends later recalled, she often provoked them on purpose, pitted them against each other, watched them fight for her attention, and enjoyed it. Soon the climbing community began to whisper, she uses men. She manipulates them. She climbs not with strength or skill, but with charm. And the truth is, the rumors weren't entirely wrong. CHANTAL did use her looks to her advantage. She didn't carry the heavy packs. The men did that. She didn't fix the ropes on the hard sections. Someone else did. Her own pack was unusually small, with a plush toy duck strapped to the frame. And inside, almost nothing. She climbs light, saves her energy. The men around her burn out completely. Is it fair? Honest? CHANTAL doesn't care. For her, it's a game. One played by rules she invented herself. She often said, too many men, too little time. It sounds like a joke, but in that joke lies her entire philosophy. Men were a resource, a tool, a way to reach her goal, and that goal was always the same, the summit. And CHANTAL would do whatever it took to get there. Among all the men drawn into her orbit, one stood out. Tor Kaiser, an American climber, strong, experienced, reliable. He fell for CHANTAL completely, head over heels. It wasn't some camp romance in a tent under the stars. It was real. He saw her not just as a beautiful woman, but as a partner, someone to share both life and mountains with. They started dating, planned an expedition together. Argentina, Aconcagua, almost 7,000 meters, a tough climb. but they'd do it together. Only one problem: money. Expeditions are expensive: flights, gear, permits. Chantal led tourist groups now and then to earn cash, but as the departure date got closer, she suddenly told Tor, "I don't have money for the ticket." Tor didn't think twice. He took on extra work, delivering pizzas. Yes, a serious climber, tackling 6,000-meter peaks by day, riding around town with pizza boxes at night. For her, he saved every dollar, slept less, spent nothing. And a few months later, he bought her tickets. They flew to Argentina. And that's where everything began to fall apart. Chantal grew distant, cold, stopped talking to him. They climbed together, tied to the same rope. But it was as if she didn't even see him. Tor couldn't understand what was happening. He tried harder, tried to win her back, to be useful, to be faster, better. Before their next summit push, Chantal turns to him and says, "If we reach the top today, everything will be fine." Tor doesn't understand the logic. Why would the summit change anything between them? But it doesn't matter anymore. He just wants her back. He just wants her love. He makes a decision. Either I'll get her to the summit, or I'll die trying. They start the climb. At night, rain, cold, slippery rock. Hour after hour, they push upward. By 11 p.m., they've cleared one of the hardest sections. The summit is close now. 18 hours of climbing. Tor is exhausted. His shoulders, arms, legs, heavy as lead. But he refuses to stop. Just a little more, a few more meters. Then they'll be on top, and everything will be fine, she promised. In the darkness, he grabs a solid-looking hold, shifts his weight onto it, and feels it move. The rock loosens. Too late. It rips free from the wall and drops into the void. Tor shouts a warning, praying it doesn't hit Chantal. But it hits the rope instead, slicing it clean through. In an instant, Tor is gone, ripped from the face. He falls, crashing against the rock again and again. A single thought flashes through his head. At least I'm not dead yet. After about 20 meters, he slams onto a wide ledge, alive, barely. His right arm, broken in several places. The pain is unbearable. Rescue teams reach him, help him down to base camp. For Tor, the climb is over. But Chantal, she announces she'll keep going. Another team invites her to join their summit attempt the next morning. At dawn, she walks up to Tor, looks him straight in the eyes, and says one sentence, "I just don't love you anymore." That's it. That's all she says. To the man who worked nights delivering pizzas so she could climb. To the man who broke his body trying to get her to the summit. Tor goes home, crushed, physically and emotionally. The injuries heal slowly. The rest doesn't. He starts seeing a therapist, trying to make sense of what happened. The therapist gives him one clear piece of advice. Never cross paths with that woman again. Tor nods. Promises he'll stay away. But a few months later, when he learns that Chantal is preparing to climb K2, he immediately starts looking for a team. The therapist? Forgotten. Common sense? Gone. Pain? Irrelevant. Tor goes after her again, like a moth drawn to the flame, straight into the most dangerous place on Earth. K2, the Karakoram, Pakistan. If Everest is the highest mountain in the world, K2 is the deadliest. 8,611 meters. Just a couple hundred meters shorter than Everest. But the difference isn't in height, it's in personality. K2 doesn't forgive mistakes. None. Ever. The numbers are brutal. 1 in 4 climbers who attempt it never come back. 1 in 4. Think about that. A team of 8 goes up, 2 never return. Everest is crowded with guided expeditions. Tourists pay big money, clip into fixed ropes that have hung there for years, and slowly move up the line. It's become an industry. If you follow the rules, it's relatively safe. K2 is different. Its slopes are steeper, far steeper. The ice is unstable. Avalanches can strike at any second. The weather flips in moments. One minute the sky is clear, the next a storm tears through the mountain, blowing tents and people straight off the ridge. They call it the Killer Mountain, the Savage Mountain, a peak that doesn't want to be climbed. There are no easy routes, no safe days. Every single meter is a gamble. And that's exactly where Chantal Mauduit decides to go in 1992. Why? Because K2 is the ultimate challenge, the legend, the mountain that separates the tourists from the true alpinists. At that time, only one woman in history had ever reached the summit of K2 and come back alive, Wanda Rutkiewicz from Poland, a global icon of mountaineering. Chantal wanted to be the second. She builds her team, gathers gear, gets her permit from the Pakistani authorities, prepares for the climb, and then Tor Kaiser hears the news. He's back home in America, his arm still not fully healed from the fall in Argentina. His therapist keeps warning him, "Forget this woman. She'll destroy you completely." But Tor doesn't listen. He starts looking for a spot on any expedition heading to K2 that season. He doesn't care about the cost, the risk, or the conditions. He finds a place on a Russian-American team. They take him in, and soon Tor is on a plane again, flying toward her, toward the mountain that kills 1 in every 4 who try to climb it. His friends ask him, "Why? What for? She left you. She told you she doesn't love you. Why are you doing this to yourself? Where's your pride?" Tor can't explain it. He just knows he has to be there. He has to help her. He has to see her reach the summit, even if it costs him his life. Later, one climber would say about Chantal, "She was like Helen of Troy. She infuriated and inspired thousands of men. Wars would have started because of her." Tor Kaiser is heading into his own war, with the mountain, with himself, with a love that refuses to die. K2 is waiting. After 19 days of travel, Chantal's team finally reaches base camp, Pakistan. Here, the rules are strict, especially for women. Locals expect respect for their traditions, modest clothing, quiet behavior, no walking alone. Women don't draw attention. They don't wander the markets. They don't show skin. Chantal couldn't care less. She walks alone through the bazaars, wearing short shorts and tight t-shirts. Men stare. Some shout. She causes outrage more than once. Locals yell at her, threaten her, demand she cover up or leave. Other climbers try to reason with her. "Chantal, you're in a Muslim country. You can't behave like this. It's dangerous." She just shrugs. She's not here for cultural etiquette. She's here for the mountain. Base camp comes alive with preparation. Chantal joins a Swiss team, but from day one, it's clear she has no intention of pulling her weight. The climbers spend days fixing ropes on dangerous slopes, grueling technical work, hours hanging on icy walls, hammering in anchors, setting protection. Chantal doesn't join them. She says she's climbing alpine style. Light, fast, minimal gear, no fixed ropes. Fine. But at least carry your own pack. She refuses. The men in her team haul the tents, stoves, fuel, and food up to the higher camps, loads of 20-30 kilos each. Chantal's pack is tiny. Same one as always. A little plush duck tied to the frame, almost empty inside. She uses the attention of the men to avoid the heavy work, flirting, joking, asking sweetly for help. And they help. Of course they do. The Swiss team works for weeks, setting camps, scouting the route, preparing for the summit bid. But after a while, Chantal decides they're too slow, too cautious, too uncertain. She starts to drift away from them, and closer to the Americans, Ed Viesturs and Scott Fisher. Strong climbers, fast, confident, and among them, Tor Kaiser, looking at her as if she's the only thing that matters in the entire world. Chantal switches sides, changes teams, puts her bet on a new horse. There's just one problem. Under local law, climbers aren't allowed to switch teams. Each expedition permit is issued to a specific group. Breaking that rule can mean heavy fines, or even jail. Chantal doesn't care. A few days later, the Swiss team makes their summit attempt. A storm hits. They're forced to retreat, exhausted, defeated. Back in base camp, they make a decision. They're done. Too many people on the mountain, the weather too unstable, the risk too high. By law, Chantal is supposed to leave with them. Her permit is tied to their expedition, but she refuses to go without a real summit attempt, and that's when Tor Kaiser makes his move. "Join us," he says. "We'll climb together, forget the rules." Chantal agrees instantly. She stays. Illegally. With another team. Breaking every regulation that exists. But what do laws matter when the summit is calling? While Tor hauls gear to the upper camps, fixes ropes, and works himself to exhaustion, Chantal starts sleeping with his teammate, Ed Viesturs. And not discreetly. They don't hide it. No one can see what happens inside the tent, but everyone can hear it. Yes, right there in base camp, in full earshot of everyone. Tor knows, he hears, he sees, and he says nothing. He just endures. Broken inside, still hoping, somehow, that once they reach the summit, everything will change. July 28, 1992. Tor Kaiser, Ed Viesturs, and Gennady Kopeka leave base camp for their summit push. Chantal stays behind, for now. The men climb to Camp 3. Viesturs and Nikiforov share a tent. Tor sleeps alone. In the middle of the night, he hears footsteps, crunching snow. Someone's coming up the route. It's Chantal. She waited until the men left base camp, then quietly put on her crampons, filled a bottle with water, and set off after them, light and fast, alone, in the dark, on one of the most dangerous routes in the world. Tor isn't surprised. He knew she'd come. They continue the ascent together. July 31st. Clear skies, a chance. Tor hauls a brutal load, a tent, stove, sleeping bag, food, ropes. Everything they'll need to camp higher and push for the summit the next day. But the weight is crushing. After a few hours, they're forced to stop. They decide to leave some gear behind. Sleeping bags, rope, most of the food. Without sleeping bags, spending a night at 8,000 meters is suicide. But if they keep the load, they'll never reach the top. They go on, lighter, faster. But night catches up to them. Tor's feet start to freeze. Chantal, in her thin climbing suit, seems unaffected by the altitude. People would later say that was one of her strange gifts. She acclimatized faster than anyone. At dawn, Tor decides to go back down for the sleeping bags. They'll need them for the next night, or they won't survive. Chantal tells him, "Since you're going down anyway, bring mine too." Tor nods silently. He descends, finds the bags, and drags them both back up, his and hers. On the way, he runs into a Russian climber, Alexei Nikiforov. Alexei is also climbing without a sleeping bag, hoping to reach Camp 4 in a single push. They team up. Tor's relieved to have help breaking trail through the deep snow, but that day, they don't make it to Camp 4. They're forced to bivouac right on the shoulder of the mountain, on ice, in the wind. Alexei lies down between Chantal's and Tor's sleeping bags. The three of them share warmth and survive the night. August 2nd, the trio finally reaches Camp 4. There, they meet Vladimir Baliberdin and Gennady Kopeka, descending after their own summit. They were the first to reach the top via the Abruzzi Ridge since 1986. They'd spent the night at 8,600 meters, nearly dead from exhaustion. Before heading down, they leave their tent and a sleeping bag for Alexei Nikiforov. Then they start their retreat. Every minute in the death zone is worth gold. Now, it's time for the final push. Tor Kaiser wakes before dawn. He begins breaking trail through half a meter of snow. Alexei follows. They climb, slowly, painfully. Every step a battle, but just 200 meters from the summit, Tor realizes he's spent. Completely empty. If he goes higher, he won't come back alive. All his energy is gone, burned on hauling gear, setting ropes, carrying the sleeping bags. He sits down on the ridge, trying to spot Chantal and Alexei below. He wants to signal Alexei to take over the lead, but his mind is slipping, his thoughts blur. Even simple movements feel impossible. And then, a voice, clear, firm, inside his head. "If you want to live, go down." Tor looks around. No one's there. But he stands up and starts descending. Chantal left Camp 4 last. Following the trail Tor carved, she quickly catches up with Alexei in the bottleneck, the narrow, deadly corridor just below the summit. She passes him, then meets Tor on his way down. The temptation is enormous, just a little higher. The summit is right there. "You're a good man," she tells him. Tor nods, says he'll wait for her in Camp 4. That decision, to turn back, saves not only his life, but also Chantal's and Alexei's. As he descends, Tor finds 50 meters of rope left near the bottleneck, discarded by Vladimir Baliberdin, who had decided he wouldn't need it anymore. Tor anchors the rope into the ice, setting a fixed line through the most dangerous part of the bottleneck so that Chantal and Alexei can make it down safely. Meanwhile, Chantal, who hasn't spent her strength hauling gear, fixing ropes, or breaking trail through deep snow, climbs light, fast, with that uncanny acclimatization of hers. At 5 p.m. on August 3rd, 1992, she becomes the fourth woman in history to reach the summit of K2, 8,611 meters, the Killer Mountain, one of the most technically demanding peaks on Earth. It's a monumental achievement, a triumph. Chantal is at the very peak of her mountaineering career, But her celebration doesn't last long. During the climb, she lost her sunglasses. Now, her eyes are completely unprotected. From the freezing wind, from the tiny shards of ice swirling in the air, and most of all, from the brutal ultraviolet light that scorches everything at this altitude. Standing on the summit, Chantal realizes something terrifying. She can barely see. Her vision is fading fast. Descending on her own is impossible. She simply can't tell where to step. Panicking, she crawls into a small snow cave, one that another climber had dug a couple of days earlier, and takes shelter inside. But the cold starts creeping in. Her body begins to shut down. One more night up here, and she won't survive. Yes, she's reached the summit, but the price might be her life. Alexei Nikiforov descends from the summit, drained, barely conscious. Every step is torture. His mind is hanging by a thread. Then, a snow cave. The one dug 2 days earlier. Someone's inside. He looks in. Chantal, curled up, motionless. Her eyes are open but unfocused. Her lips are blue. She's freezing to death. An hour more, and she'll be gone. Alexei grabs her shoulders, shakes her. No response. He yells. Finally, she stirs. She stands, but can't move on her own. He leads her down. She stumbles, falls, gets up again. He drags her by the hand like a child. Every 10 meters, she dozes off while walking. He shakes her back to consciousness. If she stops, she'll never wake up. Then comes the worst part, the bottleneck. A narrow, near-vertical passage. One wrong step, and you drop hundreds of meters. Alexei digs for footing, clings to the ice. Chantal hangs on him like dead weight. Then, the rope. The one Tor fixed earlier. Alexei clips in, shifts his weight, and suddenly his crampon slips. He loses balance, a brief, terrifying fall. Then the rope catches him, stopping him a meter from the void. His heart hammers, his hands shake. If not for that rope, both of them would have been gone. Hanging there, gasping for breath, he steadies himself and keeps moving, lower, meter by meter. He guides Chantal down, step by step. She barely responds, barely knows where she is. She just obeys, following his voice. Finally, the tent. Camp 4. Alexei collapses inside, completely spent. Tor is there, waiting. He looks up. Chantal? She was right behind me, Alexei manages to whisper, and passes out. 45 minutes later, Tor hears snow crunching outside, unsteady footsteps. He looks out and sees Chantal staggering blindly through the dark, hands stretched forward like she's playing blind man's bluff, her face empty. She's feeling her way through the night, unable to see. Tor runs out, grabs her, pulls her into the tent. He rips off her boots. Her feet are frostbitten, but not beyond saving. He lights the stove, melts snow, makes tea, soup, feeds her chocolate, gives her hot water, warms her hands, wraps her in a sleeping bag. They spend 3 days in Camp 4, above 8,000 meters, in the death zone, a place where even lying still doesn't help you recover. You just die slower. The body falls apart hour by hour, but Tor keeps going. He feeds them both, keeps Chantal awake, won't let her drift off into the long sleep. Alexei is barely alive too. Mountain sickness, exhaustion, cold. Now Tor has to bring 2 half-dead climbers down the mountain. The next day after noon, they begin the descent. Tor and Alexei hold Chantal under her arms. She barely moves her legs. Every few minutes she collapses into the snow, too weak to stand. They lift her, drag her down again. After 3 hours, they've covered just 60 meters. Tor realizes it's impossible to guide a blind woman down a technical slope at night. He pitches the tent. Alexei looks at him, shakes his head, and keeps going alone. He's thinking about his own survival now. Tor stays with Chantal, the 6th night above 8,000 meters, the 6th. At dawn, the weather clears, perfectly calm. Tor calls down by radio to Ed Viesturs and Scott Fisher in Camp 3. Alexei made it to them during the night. They're ready to climb up and help. Viesturs and Fisher rope up for safety and start moving upward. Suddenly, Viesturs feels the hair on the back of his neck rise. A warning from instinct. He dives into the snow, digging desperately, trying to bury himself before it hits. Fisher looks at him, confused. And then it happens. A wall of snow and ice slams into him. The avalanche sweeps him away. The rope snaps tight, yanking Viesturs out of his hole like a hooked fish. He's dragged 100 meters down the slope. He fights it with his ice axe, clawing into the rock, slowing down until he stops, just meters from the drop-off. Fisher hangs nearby, both alive, not a scratch. They catch their breath and keep climbing, upward, to save Chantal. Meanwhile, Tor slowly lowers her down the rope, inch by inch. After several hours, he meets Viesturs and Fisher coming up. Chantal is completely spent, barely conscious. The three of them continue the descent together. It takes 2 more days to get her down to Camp 3. There, at last, Chantal begins to recover, enough to walk on her own again. Later, Ed Viesturs would say that his climb on K2 was the only time in his entire career when he broke his own strict safety rules. The only time he risked everything to save one person. Chantal, in her memoirs, barely mentions what state she was in. Just one short line, something like, "My eyes hurt." That's it. What she does describe, in detail, is her welcome at the bottom. Quote, "Charlie came with tea and biscuits, and I fell into his arms. The Mexicans congratulated me. The sweetness of human warmth filled me to the brim. The one person she never mentions, not once, is Tor Kaiser. No name, no line, nothing. The man who delivered pizzas at night to pay for her ticket. The man who fixed the rope that saved her life. The man who kept her alive for 3 days at 8,000 meters. The man who risked his own life to bring her down. Erased from the story. When Chantal finally reaches base camp, the Pakistani authorities are waiting. A fine for the illegal climb. She'd switched teams without permission. She tears up the paperwork, throws it away, and flies home to France. There, she's greeted as a national hero, the 4th woman ever to summit K2, the only French climber to come back alive. But the mountaineering world splits in two. Some call her a legend, others, a manipulator, a narcissist who used men and put their lives on the line. The nickname sticks for good, the Black Widow. After K2, Chantal becomes a star. Sponsors line up. The press calls her the Iron Lady of the Alps. Invitations to elite expeditions pour in. Spring 1993, Everest. A New Zealand team, 9 climbers, 8 high-altitude Sherpas. A strong professional group. But Chantal tells the journalists, "I'm climbing alone, much faster than my friends." The team is stunned. They haul the gear, fix ropes, set up camps, and she calls it a solo climb. Tension builds. Chantal reaches about 8,400 meters. She's moving too slowly, dressed too lightly, freezing. She turns back. Another failed attempt on Everest, but Chantal doesn't care. Soon she's in Nepal again, climbing 2 nearby peaks without a permit, just her and a Sherpa. Fast, bold, illegal. In Kathmandu, officials fine her again. She ignores it, boards a plane, and flies home to France. There, she gives interviews criticizing Himalayan bureaucracy. Next stop, Antarctica, Mount Vinson. A documentary crew films the expedition. Stunning shots, heroic music, glowing commentary. On screen, Chantal looks untouchable. 1995, Everest again. This time via the Northeast Ridge, a route no one had yet completed. The expedition is led by Russell Bryce. Chantal joins as a paying client. Avalanches make the route impossible. The climbers are exhausted. The team turns back. Another failure. But Chantal doesn't stop. She finds a new expedition leader, the legendary Rob Hall, the man famous for guiding clients up Everest with an almost perfect success rate. A top-tier professional. Hall takes her on an expedition up the Southeast Ridge, the classic route. Chantal is determined. This time, she'll make it. The team climbs slowly, methodically. Hall keeps everything under strict control. Chantal stays at the very back, the slowest of all the clients, constantly falling behind, delaying the group. They reach the south summit, 8,750 meters. Just 100 meters of horizontal ridge separate them from the main peak. But that final stretch is the most dangerous part. Chantal stops. Hall walks over, places a hand on her shoulder. Her lips are blue, her eyes unfocused. She's not fully there anymore. "Down," Hall says. Chantal nods faintly. No argument. She can barely speak. They start descending. After 30 meters, she collapses on the slope. Hall realizes he has to drag her down. Again. He calls for help. Several climbers climb up to assist, among them Ed Viesturs, the same man who'd saved her life on K2 3 years earlier. Now he's doing it again. With enormous effort, risking their own lives, they lower her down to the tents. They treat her for hypoxia, dehydration, exhaustion. She comes around quickly. The next day she's walking around base camp as if nothing happened, laughing, joking, flirting, like it was all just another day in the mountains. Rob Hall comes back furious. He tells anyone who'll listen, "I dragged her like a sack of potatoes. She'll never be on one of my expeditions again. Never." And he keeps his word. Hall bans Chantal permanently from all his climbs. Her reputation is ruined for good. Now people talk about her openly. The woman who always needs rescuing. The climber who puts other people's lives at risk. They no longer whisper the Black Widow behind her back. They say it to her face. Many climbers had given up their own summit chances to save Chantal. Some risked their lives. Some came back frostbitten. Others spent the last of their strength pulling her off the mountain. Tor Kaiser would later say, "Chantal didn't take care of herself. She didn't think about safety. I climbed with her not because it was safe, but because I loved her." A French magazine publishes a harsh article, questioning her achievements. The message is blunt. Her ascents look too easy to be taken seriously. Then, after the death of British climber Alison Hargreaves on K2, Chantal gives an interview. Her words stun everyone. "I admired her, but you know, there's at least one difference between us. I'm still alive. Cold, calculated, no trace of empathy." The mountaineering world splits once and for all. Some defend her, a strong, independent woman surviving in a man's world. Others condemn her, selfish, manipulative, a danger to everyone around her. Chantal doesn't care. She keeps climbing, again and again. It's the only thing that gives her life meaning. After 6 failed attempts on Everest, she sets her sights elsewhere. Lhotse, the 4th highest mountain on Earth, 8,516 meters. No woman has ever reached its summit. 1996. Chantal joins an American team. They arrive at base camp, start acclimatizing. The weather turns unstable, the wind growing stronger every day. Then comes summit day. The team sets out early in the morning, climbing higher and higher. But the weather collapses, a blizzard. Visibility 0. One by one, the climbers turn back. Too dangerous. Everyone, except Chantal. She keeps going. Hours later, her voice crackles over the radio. Calm, steady. "I'm on the summit, the first woman on Lhotse." The team at base camp can't believe what they're hearing. In that storm, alone, without ropes or support, Chantal makes it down and returns to base camp. Everyone waits for proof, photos from the summit, the golden rule of any climb. But there are none. "The camera froze," she explains. "The wind was too strong. I didn't want to waste time. I started down right away." The climbers exchange looks. A frozen camera in summer? Everyone else took photos that same week without a problem, but officially, no one can challenge her claim. Chantal said she reached the summit, so the record stands. On paper, she's the first woman to climb Lhotse. Many in the mountaineering world quietly doubt it. The weather that day was brutal. At the very same time, on nearby Everest, tragedy was unfolding. Rob Hall and Scott Fisher died, while the legendary Anatoly Bukrev saved several clients in hurricane-force winds. And during that same storm, Chantal supposedly summited Lhotse alone. "I don't buy it," veteran climbers say to each other. But out loud, silence. Chantal, meanwhile, is already focused on her next goal. 1997, Manaslu, the 8th highest mountain in the world, 8,163 meters. This time, things go smoothly. The weather is stable. The team is strong. Chantal reaches the summit, a real confirmed climb. The French press explodes with praise. Headlines shout, "The greatest female climber of the century." The Iron Lady conquers the Himalayas. Chantal Mauduit, pride of France. Television interviews, magazine covers, documentaries. She becomes a national icon. To ordinary people, she's everything. Strength, freedom, defiance. A woman who breaks limits. But among real climbers, the mood is different. They remember K2, when Tor, Alexei, Viesturs, and Fisher saved her. They remember Everest, when Rob Hall dragged her down like a sack of potatoes. They remember every expedition where someone risked their summit or their life so that Chantal could come home. They all know about Lhotse, a summit claim with no proof, made in a storm that killed some of the best climbers on Earth. They've seen how she manipulates men, plays with their emotions, avoids carrying weight, climbs light, and later writes memoirs that don't even mention those who saved her life. The greatest woman of the century, they say, bitterly laughing. One climber puts it bluntly. Her climbs always seem suspiciously easy. Too many coincidences, too few witnesses. Another adds, she's a great marketer, a better publicist than a mountaineer. The French press ignores it all. They need a heroine. They need a story that sells. And Chantal gives them exactly that. She knows how to speak to journalists, how to build an image. Her quotes sound poetic, mystical. Being at 8,000 meters without oxygen is like cycling without a motor. It's the rebirth of the senses, a harmony with the earth. The public eats it up. The climbing community seethes. The divide is now absolute. To some, Chantal is a legend. To others, a fraud. And she keeps joking, too many men, too little time. Sometimes her former lovers approach her at mountaineering gatherings, eyes full of longing, hope, confusion. She looks at them calmly and says, "Sorry, I don't remember. Have we met?" Cold, calculated, without a trace of remorse. Tor Kaiser, the man who delivered pizzas to buy her a plane ticket, who fixed the rope that saved her life, who kept her alive for 3 days at 8,000 meters. She doesn't even remember his name. 1998. Dhaulagiri, the 7th highest mountain in the world, 8,167 meters. Chantal is preparing for yet another climb. This time, she isn't with a random partner, but with someone she truly trusts. Sherpa Ang Dorje Sherpa. Not a hired porter, but a real friend. They've climbed several peaks together. They trust each other completely. The expedition starts well. Stable weather, good acclimatization. Chantal is in excellent shape. Everything seems perfect. They reach Camp 2 and set up their tent near an Italian team led by Franco Brunella. He warns Chantal about a crevasse higher up on the route, a dangerous section. "Thanks," she says, nodding politely. She and Ang Dorje crawl into their tent, zip the entrance closed. From the outside, everything looks fine, the tent standing firm, untouched. The Italians decide to head back down to base camp to wait out a snowstorm that starts that evening. Before they leave, they glance at Chantal's tent once more. Still quiet, still intact. No reason to worry. It snows all night, then all the next day. The radio stays silent, no word from Chantal. 2 days later, the Italians climb back up. They reach Camp 2. The tent is still there, partly buried, but standing in the same position. "Chantal, Ang Dorje," they shout. No answer. They move closer. The tent is zipped shut from the inside. Too quiet. Something feels wrong. Brunella starts digging the snow away from the entrance. He opens the zipper. Inside, Chantal and Ang Dorje lie motionless in their sleeping bags. No sign of life. Brunella freezes, looks closer. Chantal's jaw is deformed, her neck broken. The Sherpa has no visible injuries. It looks like he suffocated. They didn't die while climbing. They didn't fall. They didn't die in an avalanche. They died inside the tent, in their sleeping bags, in relative safety. What happened? Some say a block of ice, a serac, fell during the night, striking the tent. But the tent isn't destroyed. It's perfectly intact. Others believe a small avalanche buried the tent, cutting off their air supply. They suffocated in their sleep. But then, why is Chantal's neck broken? Others whisper different theories. Maybe there was a fight, an accident. Could they have argued? But Ang Dorje was her friend. They trusted each other completely. The official version says it was an accident, falling ice. But no one really knows. No one saw. No one heard. They were alone in that tent, and both were dead. Chantal's body is flown back to France, cremated. Her funeral becomes a national event, the farewell of a heroine, a legend of mountaineering. Her family follows her final will, the long, meticulous testament she'd written, filled with detailed instructions. The hall is packed. Climbers, journalists, friends, politicians, cameras, flowers, medals. It's grand, almost theatrical. And then, laughter. A voice fills the room, loud, warm, unmistakable. It's Chantal, her own recording, laughing, as if from the sky itself. People freeze, some smile nervously, others start to cry. Even from the urn, she's commanding attention, controlling the moment, turning her own farewell into a performance. That was her. To the very end, drama, control, and play. Her will lists dozens of requests: where to keep her ashes, who should inherit her ice axe, which mountain should hear her words of gratitude, and which should hear her final goodbye. Each summit, each route, each country. It's as if she wanted to belong to every mountain she ever touched, to leave a piece of herself everywhere she'd been. Her family does their best to honor it. First France, her home in the Alps, where she first held an ice axe, then Peru, Huascaran, where she once descended by paraglider, then the Himalayas, the place where her legend both began and ended. But there are so many places that the journey never really ends. Her urn travels the world, just as she did, only this time without return. Chantal Mauduit lived a life that never fit into neat categories. You can't simply call her a hero or a fraud. She existed somewhere in between, always a little higher, and always closer to danger than anyone else dared to go. For some, she's pure inspiration. A woman who proved that even in a world once ruled by men, you can climb your own path. No compromises, no apologies, no fear. For others, she's a symbol of arrogance, someone who crossed not just boundaries, but people. One thing is certain, no one was ever indifferent to her. Wherever Chantal appeared, a storm followed, of passion, arguments, admiration, and resentment. She could ignite, she could wound, she could inspire, but she never went unnoticed. The mountains are a mirror. They don't give you what you lack. They only reflect what's already inside. In those who carry fear, they show the abyss. In those with strength, they open a way. And in those with pride, they remind you who's really in charge. Chantal knew that better than anyone. Now, when you look at her photos, the smiling Frenchwoman in a red jacket, flag in hand, sun above the clouds, it feels almost cinematic. But it was real, a reality where every triumph came at a heavy price. Chantal left the way she lived, suddenly, dramatically, surrounded by mystery. The mountain took her with no witnesses, but it left behind a legend. And sometimes, when climbers follow her path, the wind at high altitude carries a sound, faint but clear, like laughter. Her laughter. That's her story, complicated, ambiguous. To some, she's an icon. To others, a warning. But what do you think? Was Chantal Mauduit a hero, or simply someone who loved, risk a little too much? Tell me in the comments whose side you're on, and if you like the story, leave a like. It helps the channel grow.